The war had already taken so much from Earth and its people. It was a long, bloody battle between humans and alien invaders. Captain Jace Carter, a young soldier from Earth, was tired, hungry, and carrying the weight of too many losses. He had seen planets burn, ships fall, and friends disappear in the blink of an eye. One day, his squad received a message from command. A small alien planet had been attacked, and a few survivors might still be hiding underground. They were ordered to search and rescue, if anyone was left. The planet was quiet when they landed, too quiet. Burned trees, broken cities, and ash filled the sky. There was no sound except the crunch of his boots on the dead ground. Then he heard it, a soft whimper. Jace raised his gun and followed the sound carefully, behind a pile of metal and stone. He saw her, a little alien girl, no more than 6 or 7 years old in human age. She had pale blue skin, big glowing eyes, and tiny hands clutching a burned blanket. She looked at him, afraid, but didn't run. Jace lowered his weapon and knelt down slowly. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm here to help." She didn't speak, just stared at him with wide eyes. Then, without warning, she ran into his arms and held on tight. He froze for a second, then gently held her back. She was shaking, cold, scared, and alone. Jace carried her back to the ship, covering her in his coat. He gave her food, water, and a small plush toy from his backpack. She didn't say anything, but her eyes followed him everywhere. She watched how he moved, how he spoke, how he smiled. That night, as they sat near the small heater on the ship, Jace looked at her and laughed a little. "You know," he said, "when you grow up, I'll marry you." The other soldiers laughed too, just a light joke to break the silence. But the little girl tilted her head, looked at him seriously, and nodded slowly. "I will remember," she whispered, her voice soft like wind. Jace blinked, surprised, but smiled anyway. "Okay, then it's a promise," he said, thinking she would forget. But she didn't. Years passed. The war ended. The galaxy changed. And peace returned to many planets. Jace left the army and tried to live a normal life. He worked as a security consultant, traveled to different colonies, and tried to forget the horrors of the past. He never saw the little alien girl again. He never knew what happened to her or her people. He didn't even know her name. To him, it was just a memory, a strange and sweet moment during a dark time. But someone else had not forgotten. One night, the sky above Earth cracked with light. A strange ship entered the atmosphere, unlike anything humans had seen before. It was large, smooth, glowing with symbols and energy. Earth's defense systems were on alert. Military jets scrambled into the sky, but the ship did not attack. Instead, it slowly landed in a peaceful area near the capital. Crowds gathered, news spread fast, cameras rolled, soldiers aimed weapons, and leaders watched nervously. From screens from the ship, a figure stepped out, tall, graceful, and powerful. It was her. The little alien girl, now fully grown, her skin still pale blue, her eyes deeper and wiser. She wore elegant armor and a symbol on her chest that glowed with power. She walked past the guards without fear, straight toward Jace Carter, who had been called to the scene by the government. He stood still, eyes wide, heart racing. She stopped in front of him, looked into his eyes, and smiled. A small, quiet smile that held years of memory. "You promised," she said. "And I have returned." Jace didn't speak. He didn't know what to say. It had been a joke, a moment of kindness, but to her, it was a vow. "I've come to claim what is mine," she said softly. "You said you'd marry me, and I never forgot." The air went still. Everyone was watching. Jace felt the weight of the past crash into his chest. What had he started that day, so long ago? And what would he do now? Asterisk. The wind around the alien ship was still, but the world itself felt like it had stopped breathing. People whispered, cameras flashed, and soldiers waited for orders. But Jace Carter saw none of that. He was frozen, not in fear, but in something deeper, recognition. The tall alien woman in front of him was no longer the scared child he had rescued. She was calm, confident, and had the kind of power that made even the most dangerous leaders feel small. Her name, he learned later, was Ayla, but at that moment, she didn't feel like a visitor. She felt like fate walking toward him, and fate was calling in an old promise. "Why me?" Jace asked under his breath, as the guards formed a wall between them. He didn't know if he was asking her or the universe. Ayla tilted her head, her glowing eyes full of memory. "You were kind to me when your world was burning mine." She said, "You didn't see a creature, you saw a child." That's when Earth's High Command stepped in. They invited Ayla for a private meeting, and Jace was ordered to attend in the grand hall beneath Earth HQ. Leaders and scientists sat around a long table. Ayla stood tall before them, unshaken. Her presence filled the room like thunder waiting to fall. "I come with peace," she said, "but I come for him." The room went silent. Jace looked around, waiting for someone to speak. A general finally cleared his throat. "You mean Captain Carter?" "Yes," Ayla answered. "He made a vow to my heart, and our people do not forget such things." Someone laughed quietly, then coughed to hide it. But Ayla didn't smile. "Our kind takes promises seriously," she said. "To us, a vow is a soul bond." Jace felt a chill crawl down his spine. He remembered the old joke, the light words spoken to comfort a child. He never knew it would echo through time. Later, in a quiet room guarded by elite soldiers, Jace and Ayla were left alone. He studied her face. Searching for the little girl in her eyes, she studied him too, as if trying to understand the man her heart had been waiting for. "You really waited all this time?" he asked, his voice low. "I didn't wait," she replied gently. "I prepared." She told him stories of her home, how it had slowly healed, how she had trained to become a leader, how the elders taught her about the ancient customs of her people, and how one of those customs was the vow. When a soul is marked by a promise, it becomes part of their path. They believe such a bond brings two fates together. "You gave me hope," she said. "On a day I had nothing else." Jace sat back in silence, unsure of what to say. It was never supposed to be real. But to her, it was the most real thing she ever had. Outside, the world was changing. People watched the news, wondering what this alien woman wanted. Some feared invasion, others whispered of diplomacy. But one truth shook through every screen and every channel. She hadn't come to conquer, she had come for him. Now Earth's leaders had a choice. Could they allow this connection? Could a soldier's joke become a political bridge between two species? Or was it too dangerous to let emotions lead intergalactic ties? Jace, sitting alone in his room later, watched old war recordings. He saw himself younger, tired, holding a tiny alien child. He saw the moment he said those words, "I'll marry you when you grow up." He never imagined the universe heard him, but now the universe was knocking on his door. And she had blue skin, a glowing heart, and the strength of 100 stars. 3 words changed Jace Carter's life. "I remember everything," she had said. And the galaxy suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like it was closing around him. That night, Jace sat on the rooftop of the Earth HQ building, watching the stars. Somewhere out there was the planet he rescued her from, now rebuilt, now powerful. And sitting just a few floors below him was the woman who carried his words like a promise carved in stone. He lit a cigarette, his old bad habit, and let the wind carry the smoke away. His thoughts were louder than the world around him. "I was just trying to make a scared little girl feel safe," he whispered. "I didn't mean to change the future." The next morning, Earth's leaders summoned him again. The meeting room was colder this time, eyes sharper, voices lower. Ayla had made her intention clear. She wanted peace between Earth and her people, but only through one path: the vow. "She says you made a sacred bond," the president said, tapping a file. "She believes marriage is not just personal, it's political." Jace didn't know whether to laugh or panic. "You want me to marry her to keep the galaxy from falling apart?" he asked. "No," said the defense minister. "We want you to consider what peace is worth." The room fell silent. The pressure was real now. Not just emotional, but global. Earth had enemies, and allies were hard to find. An alliance with Ayla's people meant shared technology, protection, trade, and power. But it also meant Jace would have to become something he never planned. A husband, a symbol, a diplomat. Later, Ayla requested to see him in private. He met her in the observation deck of her ship. Outside, stars drifted slowly beyond the glass. Inside, her voice was quiet, sincere. "I know this is not how your people do things," she said, "but my people believe in truth. You spoke from the heart, even if you didn't mean it fully. And it changed me." Jace looked at her. Really looked this time. She wasn't demanding, wasn't forcing. She was hoping. "You saved me, Jace," she continued. "Not just my life, but my hope." Jace leaned on the glass, staring into space. "I've never been anyone's hope before," he said. "I'm just a soldier, not a prince." "You don't have to be a prince," she replied. "Just be the man who kept his word." The days that followed were filled with debates, interviews, and chaos. The news called him the accidental groom of the galaxy. Some people cheered, others protested. A few called it romantic, while others feared a trap. Meanwhile, Jace began spending more time with Ayla. He asked questions about her culture, her people, her memories. They laughed sometimes, awkward laughs that softened the tension. He told her about Earth's music, pizza, and bad movies. She told him about her planet's singing crystals and moonlight festivals. In those quiet hours, something strange happened. Jace began to care. Not just out of guilt or duty, but because she wasn't just a symbol anymore. She was real, and she had waited for him with a heart that never forgot. But pressure was building. Earth's Defense Council gave him a deadline. They needed an answer. Marry her, or break the bond and risk war. Jace stood at the edge of a choice that could rewrite everything. And as he looked into Ayla's eyes one evening, he asked her the question he'd been afraid to ask. "If I say no, what happens?" She didn't flinch. "I will leave, and my people will understand," she said. "But the bond will die, and so will the hope it carried." Hope, that word again. More powerful than any weapon he had ever held. And in that moment, Jace began to wonder, was the galaxy trying to push him into something? Or had it simply brought him back to someone he was always meant to return to? The rain fell quietly over Earth's capital that night. A strange calm had settled in the air, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Jace Carter stood by the window of his temporary quarters, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. It was peaceful, too peaceful, and peace in Jace's experience never lasted long. Behind him, Ayla sat silently, her long fingers tracing patterns in the glowing crystal she wore around her neck. It pulsed gently, a soft blue light that grew warm whenever she looked at Jace. Neither of them spoke much that night. Words had become heavy things, and both of them were tired of carrying them. Then just past midnight, the sky cracked open, not with lightning, but with fire. An alarm screamed through Earth HQ. Soldiers ran through the halls, guns drawn, boots pounding like thunder. On the screen above Jace's desk, a red warning flashed again and again. Unknown hostile presence detected in orbit. Within minutes, the stars above turned red with plasma trails. Ships, dark, insect-like, and fast, dropped out of warp near Earth's moon. They weren't Ayla's kind. These were something else, and they weren't here to talk. "They found me," Ayla whispered, standing slowly, her voice steady but sharp. "They followed my signal." "Who?" Jace asked, already pulling on his gear. "Old enemies," she said. "They don't want peace. They want extinction. Outside, cities locked down. Defense cannons lit up the sky. Explosions rocked the upper atmosphere as Earth's ships scrambled to intercept the attack. But these invaders were fast, clever, and brutal. They didn't aim for the military bases first. They went straight for the power grids, the satellites, and the civilian towers. "This isn't war," one general growled. It's a message. Jace and Ayla moved through the chaos together. He was no longer just a soldier. He was her shield. And she was no longer just a guest. She was a target. As plasma fire lit up the night, Jace led her into a secure tunnel beneath the Capitol. Ayla pulled out a small device, pressed her thumb against it, and a glowing map projected into the air. She pointed to the shape of a cloaked enemy ship hiding behind Earth's moon. They sent an assassin ship, she said. It's designed to find and destroy my kind. Why? Jace asked. Why now? Because peace scares them more than war, she answered. And I carry peace inside me. They reached the emergency hangar, where a few old Earth fighter jets sat unused. Jace jumped into one, motioned for her to follow. You said I saved you once, he said with a grin. Let's make it twice. She didn't argue. She just climbed in beside him. The cockpit ceiling shut. In the sky above, the battle grew fiercer. Jace's jets soared between fire trails and debris. Enemy drones chased them. But Ayla leaned forward, touched the ship's controls, and whispered something in her language. The controls glowed with her energy, reacting like they knew her touch. Suddenly, the jet moved faster than any Earth machine should. They became a blur of speed and light. Jace laughed, not because he wasn't scared, but because adrenaline made the fear feel alive. Next time, he shouted over the comms. We take a taxi, Ayla smiled for just a second before pointing at the assassin ship. There, she said. That's the one that wants me dead. They fired everything, dodged plasma blasts, spun between explosions. Jace flew like a madman, and Ayla powered the ship with every ounce of focus. Finally, with a direct shot to the assassin ship's core, they sent it spinning in fire toward Earth's atmosphere. One explosion lit up the sky, then silence, followed by the cheers of Earth's ground forces. The threat was gone, for now back on the ground, bruised and breathing hard, Jace looked at Ayla. You weren't kidding, he said. You do bring trouble. She looked at him with tired eyes. And you keep chasing it away. They stood under the stars, silent again. But this silence was different. The silence was earned. The fire in the sky had faded, but something colder had taken its place. Not fear, not anger, but silence. The kind of silence that only follows survival. Jace Carter stood in the medical bay with a bandage across his shoulder. His body hurt, but his mind was heavier. He had saved her again, but questions still burned in his head. Who exactly was Ayla? Why did an entire assassin ship cross galaxies just to erase her? And most of all, what truth had she been hiding behind those glowing eyes? He didn't have to wait long. That night, Ayla asked him to meet her in the heart of her ship. He followed her through smooth metal halls, lit by a soft living light. Everything inside the ship felt warm, not like a machine, but like a memory. She stopped in front of a large door that opened not with a code, but with her voice. Inside was a chamber filled with floating crystals, humming softly. In the center, a single throne sat, untouched, surrounded by golden symbols. What is this place? Jace asked. This, Ayla said quietly, is who I really am. With a wave of her hand, the crystals around the room lit up with glowing images. A burning palace, alien soldiers kneeling, a tall figure falling in battle, and a child being carried away in the chaos. Jace's eyes widened as he saw her face, younger, scared, holding the same blanket she had when he found her years ago. My people had a queen, she said, a strong and wise woman who ruled with peace. She was killed during the war, and her only child was hidden. She looked at him now, no longer the quiet survivor. I am not just a girl you rescued, she said. I am the last of my bloodline, heir to the throne of Eliara. Jace took a step back, the weight of her truth pressing down on him like gravity. You're a queen? He whispered. Not yet, she replied. To lead my people, I need to form the sacred bond. And in front of the stars, I already have. Jace sat down on the edge of the platform, trying to breathe. Everything was spinning. He had thought she was special, yes, but royalty? The last of her kind? The center of a galactic political storm? I should have told you, Ayla said, stepping closer. But I wanted you to see me. Not just my title. You saw me before anyone else did. He looked up at her, confused. Maybe even a little hurt. Why me, Ayla? He asked. Out of every person in the galaxy, why did your path lead back to me? Her voice softened like mist. Because when the world was ending, you gave me the one thing I couldn't save myself, hope. You didn't just rescue me, she said. You made me believe that I still mattered. But before Jace could respond, the ship trembled, an alarm buzzed, not danger, but a message. A hologram blinked into the air, a council of alien elders speaking in their native tongue. Ayla listened, then translated. They've accepted the first step, she said. They agree to support my claim to the throne, but she added slowly, only if you stand beside me. Jace felt the words land like thunder. This wasn't just about marriage anymore. This was about empire, history, and the rebirth of a lost civilization. He looked into her eyes, searching for the girl he once knew. She was still there, but now she stood surrounded by light and legacy. Outside the ship, Earth's leaders waited for an answer. Inside, Jace sat across from a queen who had once been a child in his arms, and now she asked for more than just loyalty. She asked for destiny. Asterisk, some decisions don't roar. They don't crash into your life with noise and fire. They come quietly, like a whisper at the edge of sleep. And when you wake up, everything is different. Jace Carter hadn't slept since the truth came out. Not really, he'd closed his eyes. But dreams didn't come, only questions outside. Earth spun on, unaware that one man now stood between peace and a storm. Inside Ayla's ship, time felt slower, like the air was holding still. She hadn't pressed him. She hadn't begged or ordered. She had simply said, the choice is yours. And that was what made it harder. Jace walked alone through Earth's underground archive, a place where old war logs and history files were kept. He needed to see it again, the moment it all began. He found the footage, the broken planet, the burning city, the small figure under a blanket. He watched himself kneel, speak, smile. Then came the joke, the promise, and the nod. He watched it 3 times, and by the end, his hands were shaking. Not because of fear, but because he finally understood something. He hadn't just saved a child, he had shaped a future later that day. He stood at the top of Earth HQ's sky deck. Wind whipped through his jacket, and the clouds rolled heavy above. Behind him, the world waited. Soldiers, news feeds, politicians, all holding their breath. And then Ayla arrived, walking through. The wind, like it, didn't dare touch her. They stood face to face again, just like they had under fire. In the sky, in the silence. But this time, there were no shields. No war, no lies, only truth. I've seen the past, Jace said softly. I remember what I was, but I also see what I've become. He paused, looked at her. I can't give you a perfect man, he said, but I can give you an honest one. Ayla didn't smile, didn't move, but her eyes filled with a light he hadn't seen before. Not the glow of power, but of peace. And what does this honest man choose? She asked. He took a deep breath. I choose the vow, Jace said. Not because the world needs it, but because I need it. I choose you. The moment was quiet, but it changed everything. Above them, Earth's satellite beams flared to life, the message spreading across the world. The soldier and the alien, the promise made in a war zone, now reborn as a bond of peace. People celebrated, cheered, questioned, cried. But one thing was clear. Something powerful had been planted, something no enemy had expected. Unity. That night, Jace and Ayla stood on her ship's deck, watching the stars. No war alarms, no missions, no masks, just 2 souls, bound by a promise older than either of them understood. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. No, Jace said. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm home. She leaned against him, her voice barely a whisper. And this is just the beginning. Peace didn't arrive with fireworks. It came with quiet steps. Like dawn slipping through the cracks of a broken world. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. But when it came, people felt it in their bones. For the first time in years, Earth was not afraid. The stars above didn't look like threats anymore. They looked like roads. Open, shining roads, leading to something new. And standing at the center of it all were a man and a woman. A soldier who once made a joke, and a girl who never forgot. The ceremony was held in orbit, on a platform suspended between Earth and Liara's homeworld. No gold thrones, no grand armies, just people from two planets, two histories, watching a promise become something real. Jace Carter wore a simple uniform. His medals had been removed. Not out of shame, but out of choice. He didn't want to be a symbol of war anymore. He wanted to be a beginning. Ayla stood beside him, wearing a robe woven with starlight threads. Her people's markings across her skin glowed softly. She didn't speak much that day. She didn't have to. Her presence spoke louder than any anthem ever could. I never imagined peace would look like this, Jace whispered to her as their hands touched. That's because you helped shape it, she whispered back. A glowing circle of energy wrapped around them, representing the bond, not just between them, but between their people. Cheers rose across both planets. The vow had become a union, and the union had become a legend. But not all stories end with happily ever after, because the stars are wide, and not all of them are friendly. Far away, on the edge of a dying system, a shadow watched the ceremony through an old, broken screen. A tall figure sat in a chair made of bone and rust. Its eyes burned red. Its voice was a whisper, ancient and bitter. So the child lived, it muttered, and the soldier chose hope. Behind the figure, machines hummed. Dark weapons powered up, and maps shifted. One planet was marked in red, Earth, another marked in gold. Eliara, and next to them both, a single word etched in alien script. Target. Back in orbit, Jace and Ailey stood under the stars, alone at last. He looked up, smile soft. You know, he said, if someone had told me years ago that I'd end up marrying an alien queen, you would have run? She asked playfully. I would have asked what she looked like first. He grinned. She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in a long time. Not as a leader, not as a survivor, but as a woman who found something no one had expected. Love born from war, and a future shaped by a joke that turned into a vow. But somewhere, in the dark corners of space, something old was waking, something angry, something patient, and the new era had only just begun.